Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk, and this is our After Dark edition. Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Here we are. We're here to answer your questions. What is interesting to you? Now, obviously, since it's my show, I guess we can talk about anything I want to talk about, but this is your opportunity to ask the questions that you want answered. Feel free to put something in the chat, all right? And we will do our best to see it. Now, I will do my best to answer all the questions, okay? And not that we're asking for super chats, but I'm just telling you, when you do a super chat, I get a big notification here on my screen, and it's much easier to highlight that. So, not begging for super chats. We're really not. I'm just telling you, if you really want it answered, please let me know. It's a lot easier to do. Okay. Now there are several things that I think that are worthy of talking about. Obviously, Barry Morphew has had a motions hearing over the last 2 days. I wasn't there. We didn't send Julie down to the motions hearing. Looking back now, that was a poor decision on my part not to send her. Frankly, it wasn't even on the radar, and we missed it. But otherwise, then Julie wouldn't have been able to get all the snow here in the metro area and be able to drive home in the ice tonight, because it's a kind of a snowy, icy day. But it's Colorado, so stuff happens. So I don't know. But anyway, we digress. Anyhow, I called, not that I say it right, and we don't know what's going to happen. A jury could easily convict Barry Morphew. Obviously, he's given the presumption of innocence. But things are not going well for the prosecution, ladies and gentlemen, okay? And I'm just calling it the way I see it. The prosecution has problems. First of all, the judge said that the district attorney herself violated the gag order. It's unclear what remedy or sanction is going to be imposed. But the DA, Miss Stanley, went on a podcast, Mike King's podcast, Profiling Evil, talked about the case when there was a gag order in place. Bad decision. Not sure why the DA would think that would have been a good idea. All right, we've had Mike King on several times. We've been on his show. I like Mike a lot. You know, good for him. He didn't get held in contempt, right? It's the DAs that are responsible for that. And she's going to be held to account for that maybe some way. You know, the jury's certainly going to get to find out about it, that she's out there talking about the case in violation of court's order. It kind of makes you think that maybe somebody thinks the rules don't apply to them. Just saying. But what's the bigger issue, okay, from what my perspective is? And I didn't get to see everything, but basically there is what they call a Frank's challenge as it relates to the affidavit for the arrest warrant, okay? So when an officer says, hey, district attorney, will you please review this affidavit for an arrest warrant because I want to take it to a judge. Will you give me the seal of approval? No requirement that the detective take it to a prosecutor to review. But most jurisdictions do that just so if there's a problem with it, they catch it before it gets to the judge. Now, let's be honest, most of the time, the judges quickly peruse it, find probable cause, and kind of, move along. So in this particular case, the defense is saying, hey, we think that you really knew about some things that would, for lack of a better term, clear Barry Morphew, information that is exculpatory. And in particular, that is the fact that a registered sex offender's DNA was found in the vehicle of Suzanne Morphew. I believe it was in the glove box. Now, I think most people, if you're being intellectually honest, say, hey, that's pretty significant, particularly when we have a missing person, right? The body has not been found. There's no confession. There's no eyewitness. The fact that there's somebody else's DNA that shouldn't be there, that's not a close family relative, friend of the family, why is it there? That's exculpatory, right? So the defense is saying, hey, you didn't put all that stuff in there, and yet you knew about it. Not good, right? And then you ask, well, who could have done that? Well, let's see who is responsible. Well, more than likely, and let's face it, that arrest warrant was reviewed by the commander of the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office. I think he was the investigator at the time. He's now the head guy. And then we also have the investigator. Why can't I think? I've lost his name here. Lindsay. No, that's the DA. Then we had the DA who resigned back in October and has basically fallen off the face of the earth, won't communicate in any way, but he's still a licensed attorney and works for the Pueblo District Attorney's Office. So it's not like he can say, I don't want to come up and play. He's under subpoena. That's a problem, okay? And let me get the affidavit. I know why that happened. My notes here. Anyway, the lead investigator from CBI that was working the case, that was taking care of this DNA issue, well, he has a little incident at home, okay? And as I understand it, it's a negligent discharge of a firearm case. And I'm 99% sure that this agent was on a case where it was an allegation of a negligent discharge. So it's kind of ironic to me that would happen, since I'm 99% sure it's the same guy opined that those kinds of things just don't happen. And anyway, Cahill was his last name. Well, he resigned. And the investigators in that internal affairs investigation determined that the now former CBI agent / lead investigator was not truthful. I know you're saying, Scott, how could this possibly be? A veteran of some 30 years in law enforcement has a minor little mishap at home with his firearm, and then allegedly is not truthful about it, to where the internal affairs people at CBI said, you're not being truthful. Well, guess what? The defense is going to get that information as well. They should. So now all of a sudden we have the lead investigator, the person who's worked the case. He may not be there anymore. And I've had cases where the detective retires and comes back kind of on a cold case type of scenario, but he testifies to what he did. But the detective had impeccable credentials. The guy was amazing, okay? But when you have a case that is already, for lack of a better term, very, very weak, your lead investigator has issues regarding truthfulness, that's the problem. And so the judges ordered that the prosecution has to turn over prior drafts that were written by Cahill and reviewed by everybody. Okay? Why is that important? Well, what was in there? I mean, there's a 150 some odd page affidavit. What wasn't included in there, right? I've never seen anything like it. The judge commented in all his years he's never seen a 150-page affidavit. It's not, I mean, when I read that affidavit, I'm literally like, all they did was cut and paste from the interview summaries and put it in there. Frankly, I think it looks just like sloppiness to me. And I guess they're trying to say, well, we were trying to be as thorough as we can. But we just left out a lot of that stuff regarding the whole DNA. Don't worry about that. Oh, come on. That's not important. Oh, really? Well, because the judge has to have that. So that comes back to the Franks hearing. And it's Delaware v. Franks, the United States Supreme Court case. So what happens is if you have an affidavit for a search warrant, arrest warrant, something along those lines, and you can show that there were material misrepresentations that were made, or material omissions that were made. So if you so literally, and I've done this before, I've tried to illustrate this before, is you take Exhibit A. Here's the document that you're looking at. And normally these are no more than a couple pages long. So 150 pages, crazy. And so you black out what you can show as a material misrepresentation. It looks like a redacted document. And you suddenly like, wow, there's not probable cause. And then you can show, if you add in what the officers left out, the question then is there still probable cause? Remember, the cops have to be honest. Oh. And so when there's integrity issues with that officer, and, it's kind of like when we talk about Alex Murdaugh, and I said, there's going to be more cases. Look out. This guy didn't just one day happen to think that he's going to get away with this. There's going to be more and more cases, and sure enough, there are. Okay? A veteran of some 30 plus years in law enforcement who just happens to have one bad day, right? But apparently is so obvious that he lies about it and they catch him at it. My guess is may not be, let's just say, we don't know for sure. We're not making any accusations, but use your common sense, ladies and gentlemen. Use your common sense. So the prosecution has problems. I mean, think about it. They have no body. They have no eyewitness. Their main suspect, it looks like the investigators weren't really interested in following the evidence or the lack thereof and let the chips fall where they may, that they put their mind on Barry Morphew and simply were going to do everything that they could to do what they could to get enough evidence to charge Barry Morphew. I mean, they somewhat befriended him. He thinks that they're his friends, and the whole time they're there trying to catch him in some sort of a lie. I mean, frankly, it's a little disingenuous, really. I mean, if you think somebody's a suspect, for God's sake, tell them you're the suspect. I think, is that good police work? I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I think it's a little shady, in my opinion. And like I said, and then you get the prosecutor who resigns abruptly in October when these kind of first allegations of evidence not being turned over to the defense come around. And we don't know the extent of that. But I think it's rather interesting that the prosecutor is not really cooperating with the defense or the prosecution to come in and say, I acted completely above board. I have done nothing wrong. And let me tell you what I did and why what I did was appropriate. Okay. And the new judge in this particular case sounds like he's not particularly impressed with the prosecution or what he has seen thus far. And he's basically said, prosecutors, you have to turn the stuff over. Okay. You have a duty to turn stuff over. And as you may recall, right, there is a pending civil suit where Barry Morphew sued individually in their individual capacity, the lead investigators in this case, right, the prosecutors, for withholding of evidence. Okay, there's something that was in that discovery that obviously we don't have that is kind of must be a smoking gun. And, it sounds like, just in my humble opinion, that a lot of these police officers involved in this investigation, that's right, they may want to do this.
All right, lawyer.
Just saying, there's some allegations.
Lawyer.
We'll have to wait and see. And, I try not to get over my skis when it comes to saying this, but I'm telling you, from a defense attorney's perspective that's been following this case, and with the caveat that I was not in that hearing for the last 2 days, and I've tried to read as much as I can of the information that was provided, but some knucklehead out there wouldn't allow the judge, not the judge's knucklehead, but some knucklehead Apparently they had it on WebEx so certain people could watch, more than likely family members, somehow hacked the WebEx and were streaming it on YouTube, for goodness sakes. Like, come on, people. Really? There's always that one knucklehead that ruins it for everybody, don't they? So they wouldn't even allow computers or phones in the courtroom so that the people that were there giving play-by-plays could do it. So very, very frustrating in that regard. All right. So that's kind of our opening statement there on old Barry Morphew. And for those of you who are maybe joining us for the first time, like I said, this is Crime Talk. We'll answer your questions. Is whatever you ask, we'll answer them. I'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly as it relates to my analysis of any of the case. Okay, I'll give it to you just like I would have to tell a client. Sometimes the hardest job about being an attorney is telling the client that their case sucks. So yeah, we'll see. And for those of you who have first joined us, and yes, we're a little casual tonight, but I had no court and I woke up and it was snowing and I knew I had to go to the jail to meet a client. So I was just like, you know what? We're going casual. And that's what we did. But for those of you saying, who is this guy? What the hell does he know? Well, I've been practicing criminal defense going on 27 years. So I think I have a pretty good idea of what's going on. I've handled literally every type of case you could possibly imagine, and even some that you couldn't imagine. I think I usually get it right. I think I have a better batting average than even the Magic 8 Ball that we do on our Patreon show, which will be immediately following this. So if you're not a Patreon member, you should join us as well, because then you also get to call in, which is kind of a nice treat. And let's see here. Mom Pink, did you get any more information on the Paul Flores case? I haven't been following that case. The Paul Flores case, that's the one in California, the cold case. The Smart case, Kristen Smart case. Do you think they have to rewrite the affidavit? Well, that's an interesting question, Kate. You nailed it. So what is the remedy? Okay, if this information is turned over, let's say there's previous drafts, and let's say in the previous drafts, the CBI agent that drafted it, Cahill, had in there, oh, by the way, there's some DNA evidence, and they took it out. That's like a smoking gun of material misrepresentation, right? An omission of material facts. What's the remedy? The remedy would be for the court to say there's no probable cause, basically say we're done with the case. Now, the case has kind of gone on through preliminary hearing, and although I did not sit through the preliminary hearing myself, Julie from the CrimeTalk staff was down there, and let's be honest, she went in there thinking, this guy did it, he did it, and when she came back to the office after that, she was even like, is that it? Please tell me there's something more. Am I correctly paraphrasing that, Julie? Julie is shaking her head. Yes, that I have accurately stated what she said. And the prosecution case has not gotten any better, ladies and gentlemen. The prosecution is fumbling poorly this case, okay? And they have no one to blame but themselves. I thought when we actually saw the affidavit, I was like, please tell me there's something more. And I thought it was weak. I think they jumped the gun a little bit. And Matt, Crime Talk. Have you ever had a client that shot a man point blank in the head, fled the state for 6 months, then claimed he shot the man in self-defense? I don't know, maybe 6 months. I don't know. I mean, I've had similar cases. I can't say I've had that particular case. But yeah, I've had similar ones. One was a homicide case, and were, let's just say not guilty. But yeah. So that Matt Roberson, I don't know if you're talking about a particular case. I don't know. But I've had similar circumstances. Yes. People do the strangest things when they get scared. Okay, Jen, send it my way. Okay. Share your thoughts in the Theodore Edgecombe case. I don't think I've followed that one yet, or at least the name doesn't ring a bell. I'll see what I can do. Maryland pastor. From what we know thus far, a prosecutor is going to have a tough time getting a conviction with his defense counsel. They are pit bulls and are not going to let up. Trial is right around the corner. Maryland, you nailed it. The prosecutors are not having a good day, and the defense team that he has hired, Iris Itan and Drew Nielsen, they're good. I'm telling you, they're good, and together they're great. So yeah, I if I was a betting man, I would put my money on the defense on this one thus far. Okay. Let's see here. Scott, that's the Edgecombe trial. There just isn't enough solid evidence, Mama Pink, on the Morphew case. I think so. I mean, who knows? Who knows what'll happen at trial? But as of right now, I think the prosecution, they could probably only hope that the judge could do something that would gut their case, and they could go away quietly and blame it on the judge, even though it would really be on them. Julia, the judge was shown today how easy it is to hack WebEx. So it really wasn't hacked. They're just recording something because they could. The security isn't as secure as I thought it was. Yeah, I mean, if you have that link, you can put it right up. I mean, but when the judge says you can't record it, rebroadcast it, as an officer of the court, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to get in trouble or lose my license over it. So, yeah. Oh, okay. That's the gun. The gun just went off. Interesting. Okay. Hempland, Texas. Yeah, they'll have to find the body or the mountains or something. I mean, think about it. We had the, what was it, the case down in Teller County, Patrick Frazee, where Kelsey Barrett, right? Where he was convicted of, Patrick Frazee was convicted of Kelsey Barrett's death. But in that particular case, they had the girlfriend who came forward, got a smoking good deal. But in that particular case, they had an eyewitness basically saying, yeah, I'm telling you that they disposed of the body in this particular way. They don't have that in this particular case. I just think they pulled the trigger too soon on this particular matter. Kathy, looks like poor defense. Okay, I'll have to go look at this Theodore case. It looks like people said things weren't going well today. Scott, if you had a high-profile case, would you tell us that you were a defense attorney, or would you just ignore it? I would more than likely try to ignore it. If I was asked point blank, I would probably say maybe I was involved in that particular case, but I can't talk anything about it. That's probably what I'd say. Lula says, hey, I really believe someone took Suzanne out of Colorado. They went all over Barry's movements, and they haven't found a shred of evidence. Not blood, no DNA, nothing. It's very possible. Very, very possible. let's see here. Let's see here, Matt. I'm just going to take the stand. Don't defense attorneys prep defendants on cross-examination? How important is that? Well, yes. Normally, when you believe that there's a reasonable likelihood that a defendant will, in fact, testify, you make arrangements, you practice with them. You don't coach them exactly on every word to say, but you make sure they understand the important parts that need to come out. You also tell them, listen to the question, right? Listen to the question. Take a brief second. Listen to the question. If there's an objection, don't answer until the objection is resolved. And if there's an objection, you should probably, think a little longer before you answer. Talk to the jury, right? If you don't recall, tell them you don't recall. If you don't know, don't speculate. Don't answer the question of something that's not asked, right? There's always that one guy that you ask them what time it is and they tell you how to build a watch, right? It's like, no, dude, what time is it? Okay. So you have to prepare people for that. But sometimes, let's say you think, oh, there's no way the client's going to testify, but it's ultimately the client's decision of whether they testify or not. And then guess what? They can literally make that game time decision where you're like, what? You're going to testify? Okay. Let's, and you just kind of walk them through step by step, nice and slow. But yeah, I usually like to prepare for that a little bit. But it may have been a surprise even to the defense attorneys. Crime Curious. I still can't believe it took investigators 6 months to uncover Suzanne's affair. Carla, I'm not impressed with the lead investigators or DA at this point. I would be so unjust for this not to go to trial because they can't do their jobs appropriately. And that's why it's so important. And there's so many good police officers out there. But a good detective basically says, I'm investigating the case. Here are the facts. Let the chips fall where they may. They have no personal interest in it. And in this case, I think what happens in lots of cases that become described as high profile is that the investigators, they think this is their case. This is the one that's going to make or break their career. They're going to be legendary. And they got to solve it. And instead of looking to where the evidence leads them, they go to where they think they're going to be able to get a conviction. And that's not what they're supposed to do. So, Crime Curious, they have pegged Barry and they refuse to look elsewhere. Let me see here. If Suzanne was abducted by someone else, then why weren't parts of her private journal found in the fireplace? I don't know. That's for the prosecution to. Explain, right? I'm looking here at the question. Let's see here. Judges are on salary. Depends on which court. Federal judges paid more. Maryland, yes. True. All right, Crime Curious looking for the call-in show tonight, referring to our Patreon show. I got some questions. Feel free. He probably found it mad, made him upset, and chucked him in there. Yeah, I mean, you just never know. I mean, that's the thing. You just don't know. And here's the thing. The prosecution doesn't know. But I think their case is falling apart. Okay? Snafu, what Scott's saying is about the Morphew defense team is correct. With good defense counsel, you have such a big advantage. I hate to say it, the criminal justice system is not fair. And if somebody comes in and says, I don't care what it costs, I don't care what it takes, do your best, still can't guarantee a particular result. You give me the resources, I'm telling you, we're going to come up with something. but that is expensive, and most people cannot always afford a crack defense team. But what most people do is that they go cheap on their defense, thinking, well, it's not that big a deal. We'll fix it down the road. What if things go bad? Well, you usually don't get a second bite at that apple, right? Only 2% of cases ever get reversed on appeal, very small percentage. So you have to do it up front. And it's always more expensive to try and undo something. Always never ceases to amaze me. I had years and years ago, clients come to me, you're too expensive. Okay, go to trial, get convicted. They come back and hire me. They want me to do the appeal. I'm like, what do you want me to do? He's already been convicted. Anyway, we do it. We get it reversed. Go figure. Would have cost a heck of a lot less the first time through. But that's the way people do it. They just, you don't go cheap on your liberty, okay? You don't give up your liberty, and you don't go cheap when it comes to your liberty, ladies and gentlemen. That's your freedom, okay? I mean, think about it. If you were in lockdown for COVID in the comfort of your own home, now imagine having to do that for a really, really long time in a prison where people will shank you for a cup of ramen noodles, okay? Why would you go cheap on your liberty? You wouldn't do that. Lee shows you have an advantage with wealth. Guess what? That's life. I don't care where it is. If you have the resources, you have a better opportunity, right? If you have resources, you can provide your children with a little better opportunity. Life isn't fair. Life is not fair. That's just the way it is. And, what can I tell you? That's just the way it is. Doesn't always work out, but sometimes it certainly helps a lot. It's interesting that Linda Stanley stopped showing up. I feel like she gave up. Yeah, Carrie, Scott, would you take on high-profile cases? Yes, I have in the past. Scott, is there a cold case you'd like to see resolved? Ooh, John Bonet, I think. That's the one that just keeps going. That you just really want to know. Let's see, Scott. Scott, would you like to be a judge? Would I like to be a judge? No. Don't want to be a judge. No. Particularly, I wouldn't want to be a state court judge. Personally, and I have friends that are judges, they're magistrates and judges as well. And people always ask, my mother-in-law used to always ask, when are you going to become a judge? I don't want to be a judge. Why don't you want to be a judge? Well, first of all, I'd have to take a pay cut. Second of all, you have no staff. If you're a district court judge, right, you maybe have a clerk to help you with scheduling issues, maybe uploading orders on the thing, but it's not like they're doing the research and writing for you. Maybe if you're lucky, you can get an intern law clerk from the law school, but none of them are paid. It's not like the federal bench, right? So state court, county court, district court, with no interest whatsoever. Appellate court, going through and reading records, transcripts day after day, reading briefs, writing opinion, just not that particularly exciting to me, okay? But now if I was going to be a judge, if I wanted to be a judge, and not that I particularly do, there's only one kind of judge to be, and that is a federal judge, okay? Whether it's at the district court level, whether it's at the circuit, the appellate courts, or the Supreme Court. And obviously, there's only 9 on the Supreme Court. So I don't think that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure of that. And I don't think I'm politically connected enough to ever get an appointment to the U.S. District Court bench or the 10th Circuit, anything along those lines. But that is the gig to have. One, you get paid pretty good money, a lot of work. They work hard. They're really smart, but they at least get the staff to support them. Depending on the judge, how busy their caseload is, they can have 2 to 3 clerks that are usually attorneys helping them research, write orders, things of that along those lines. But yeah, no desire to be a judge. And, I've always said that sometimes, for the most part, attorneys that were criminal defense attorneys usually make terrible judges. And I mean terrible judges as it relates for the defendant. Because normally if you want to be a judge, you're like, hey, I'm over this. I'm over this. And you've heard it all before. You're like, yeah, I'm not buying what you're selling. And, everybody thinks, oh, he's a defense attorney. How come they're not ruling? People are like, he's a defense attorney. I can't believe he ruled against us. I'm like, listen, most judges, whether they're prosecutors, they have to let their new friends know, they're judges, that they're no longer friends with their old friends, and they're not going to give you any love in court. And frankly, the law is usually so bad for the defense. I mean, all the laws are written in favor of the prosecution, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Okay. And then on a judge, if you're a judge, guess what you have to do? You have to do civil cases. I mean, put a sharp fork in my eye. Okay. And we do civil cases. I have civil cases, but civil cases, the crap never ends. It's all about the paperwork. It's all this gotcha stuff. It is the worst. So hopefully, Kathy, that has given you my opinion on why I don't want to be a judge. So, Scott, curious if you watched the LV Brothers on 2020. I did not. Teresa, Suzanne was horribly mistreated. She almost got away. I'm praying for a miracle that there is evidence of her body found before trial. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's just not looking good for the prosecution. I think they messed up. I think they had a new DA with not the most experience that got over her skis and said, oh, we got this. Yeah. Just like the investigator. Oh, yeah, I've got this. Don't worry about that. Yeah. So, let's see here. Lisa, never skimp on your defense. Yep. Kat, I think the Morphew case is falling apart, and that doesn't speak to his innocence or guilt, only the prosecution's case. Their affidavit was way too long, first clue, and I think Scott said that months ago. Marilyn, you're absolutely correct. I said that when I first read it. I was like, man, 150 pages of this, most of it's freaking nonsense. It's like they were just trying to say, look how thick it is. You got to be guilty of something. Give us the benefit of the doubt, Judge. I don't know. And who knows? It looks maybe the defense made the right move by disqualifying the judge. It certainly would seem to think so at this point, although I think the judge would have given them everything they asked for today as well. And probably, it doesn't bode well for the prosecutors in this case because they got to practice in front of this judge and in many other cases. And when new cases come before them, and if you screw up a case this bad and your integrity is being called into question, your truthfulness, that carries over to the next case. And it doesn't bode well for the prosecution. Lula says, I do think, unfortunately, that she was in fact murdered. Doesn't seem like she would leave her daughters just like that. Okay, I get that. But seriously, Barry Morphew's daughters are in court supporting him. They're in court supporting him, saying, Judge, please let him come to Gunnison down the road from us, so that they can visit with him, that we need him. We're going through a lot right now. They clearly believe that he is innocent. How do you think that's going to play to the jury if it gets that far. They're going to say, well, geez, man, they know this guy better than any of us, and yet they're standing behind him? Wow. So I don't know. Let's see here. The joy catcher, Barry Morphew, has been really quiet, as well he should. Okay? His attorneys probably told him to keep his freaking mouth shut. He's got nothing to say at this point other than not guilty, right? Alex Murdaugh looks like he got hit in the face with a frying pan. Well, he's got more coming. Alex Murdaugh, I know some people are not interested in that case, but I think it shows the epitome of power, greed, arrogance, lack of humility. I mean, how many ways you can say it? Just a complete fall. I mean, of a guy that, for lack of a better term, Alex Murdaugh had his whole world given to him. And whatever reason, why he did all this stuff, where all the money went, we would probably never, ever know. You couldn't use all those millions of dollars just on drugs. You can't. You couldn't. I guess you could, but man, come on. Let's be realistic. There was something else going on. Whether it was debts from, I don't know, gambling, the old hookers and blow thing. Who knows what he was doing? I mean, the only person that could go through that much money other than Alex Murdaugh was maybe Hunter Biden, right? Go through all that dough and have very little to show for it. I mean, what the hell, man? And just total fall from grace. I think that the interesting thing is who's paying his bills, right? He's got attorneys charging $1,000 an hour, I think I read. And, who's paying that bill for a guy who's indigent is what they try to say. How many lies are in the truth with Barry Morphew? Telematics on his vehicle, phone records, facts, they don't line up what he originally told investigators. I don't know. Those are the kind of things that can easily be explained away. Remember, the prosecution is the one that has to put this together in a coherent fashion.
The amazing thing about this armor is how thin and lightweight this is. I am so proud.
Fine.
You never know what will happen at trial, and I have no idea. I mean, Barry Morphew's been charged. The case is not going away just yet.
I told Lauren and another person.
I don't know. So we got Barry Morphew, then we got
ready to document because
Alex Murdaugh.
So
there's something else much deeper there. Much deeper. But a guy that was literally given a life that probably wasn't as talented as his father and grandfather and great-grandfather, but still felt like he had to put up some sort of facade and was going to do anything he could, including lie, cheat, and steal. And maybe even he's apparently a person of interest. We'll give him the presumption of innocence on all of his cases because he has not been convicted. We'll give everybody that.
How they could do it. They explained how they could do it. So I explained to the judge, sir, can I make
Cindy,
a statement
what about
on
the
the
18-year-old? To throw a baby in the dumpster, only charged with child endangerment and neglect. I think I saw that story last week, and I was out of town, I think. Yeah. I remember glimpsing at that story. There's so many variables in that. If I remember, it was wasn't it like a newborn or something? Yeah, newborn. It's a newborn. Like here we have the stuff where you can take the baby if it's unwanted to the fire station.
Sound playing in the background?
I don't hear any sound playing. Okay. So I don't know. Child endangerment and neglect.
That's weird.
It may have been the kind of situation where they looked at it and said, hey, this is a scared teenager. Maybe nobody else knew that she was pregnant. I mean, clearly poor choice. Kid did not pass away. Like I said, not going to get the Mother of the Year award in a good sense. Okay, we have the mother of the year word in the sarcastic sense. Yeah. Something is playing in the background, Scott. I don't think so. What's playing? What's playing over Scott? That's interesting. I don't know. Is it something on the keyboard here?
All right, lawyer.
Somebody says it's fixed. Okay, good again. I don't know. Maybe we've been hacked. Maybe the same people that were hacking the court in the Morphew matter were hacking us. Yeah, weird audio. Okay, sorry about that. We couldn't hear anything here. Well, thank you, 6 Cents. Came to Scott's channel to try and learn and understand the USA legal and justice system. Scott explains things very well. However, I'm confused about it than when I start. I'm more confused about it than when it started. Okay, apparently we lost sound too, but we're back. Very, very odd. I'm not sure. It stopped now. That's very odd. We must have been hacked. Same people. All right, well, that's good. Well, what's confusing about the judicial system here in America? Basically, we have 2 tiers of justice, those for everybody else and those for all the others that are privileged and in positions of authority. Just saying. But it does help. Don't get me wrong. If you have a lot of money, you can have it helps to get a much better defense. Just saying. Jennifer O'Connor, going back to our talk with regarding Alex Murdaugh, $80 Percocet's got lots of money. Just saying. Yes, I agree. Lots of money, but I don't think it totals up to, what are they up to, like $7 million or something that they're talking about there. Who's Lauren? The audio mentioned Lauren. I have no idea. That's weird. Stop now. I don't know.
It's still playing something? Let me go.
Oh, D.F. Blue, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I called the probable cause outcome in Morphew case. The prosecution caved into the media pressures and filed it way too early. You called it with me, D.F. Blue, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yes, I totally believe that. If like I said, it's one thing to charge it. It's another thing to actually prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And from the defense perspective, here's some of the best legal advice. There was that billboard up that said, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty or something like that. Only matters what they can prove, right? Pamela H., did Murdaugh have a gambling problem? I'm not aware of any known gambling problems for Alec Murdaugh. I just don't know. No one, I think, knows. The people that are doing all the forensic accounting have got to be figuring out where the money went. But my guess is it went to somebody that, I don't know. That case, I don't want to speculate. I don't like to speculate, but what we do know is I don't think anyone's found a gambling problem just yet. And will they get compensated? More than likely not. Where's this? Somebody had a thing, but it looked like it was as if Kim Kardashian's going to actually work for a living, as she could relate to everyday people's legal woes. She doesn't live in our world in reality, and she doesn't have the brain capacity either. Well, yeah, she's still got to, actually make it. She thinks Kim Kardashian passed her first kind of test to say, okay, you've met the certain standard, even though you haven't graduated from college or gone to law school and graduated. But you can continue studying with your mentor, so to speak. It's interesting. let's face it, most lawyers, and I was the exception to the rule, most people that go to law school, they come from money. They come from the family of professionals, right? My mother was a secretary. My dad worked in a parts depot for Chrysler. But I have another attorney that works for me, comes from very humble beginnings. I have two other attorneys. Both of their fathers were doctors, right? It wasn't a question of if they were going to go to, college and graduate school. It was only a question of where. And I think it's maybe changing a little bit, but I remember when I went through, like, all these kids, like, oh, my dad's a lawyer. My last 4 generations in my family have been lawyers. A long list of lawyers, and I'm like, what? I mean, it was like a different world to me. Now, does that mean just because you come from money and kind of a silver spoon in your mouth that you cannot relate to clients that have nothing? No, I don't necessarily think so at all. It's like any case. You got to know your client. You got to get to know your client, understand and appreciate what they're going through. Most of the time on cases, and people don't realize this, is it's negotiations. It's, being able to tell your client's story, making sure their story is told. Like, okay, you know what? Maybe they were out doing illegal things. Let's just say, for example, they were, say, illegal narcotics sales. And then you find out, well, okay, the person came here because they're being persecuted in another country, and they have a 3rd grade education, and they tried to get work, but they couldn't fill out the application. They didn't, and so basically somebody spoke Spanish and said, you're going to do this. And I'm certainly not condoning it, but that's their story. It's not going to be a defense, but it helps explain what's going on. You have to say, hey, and listen, man, unless he gets asylum, somebody's going to go to, they're going to be deported. So really what it comes down to, I don't think it necessarily matters from what walk of life they come from. I came from very humble beginnings. We were not wealthy at all where I grew up. Frankly, we didn't realize that basically nobody had much of anything because everyone around us had nothing. So you just didn't know. There were the people that lived on the other side of the highway that lived in the big fancy falutin houses, and maybe you occasionally had a friend that lived over there, but that was about it. So yeah, but it helps me appreciate and always have to remember where you came from. That's for sure. But yeah, I remember going to law school, and everybody's family has been like, no, first one in my family to go to school. Yeah, graduate, college. College, and let alone law school. So, yeah. Pamela, Buster's been out photographed gambling recently. I remember seeing that. His mom and brother are not here anymore, and Dad's in prison, and Buster's out partying. Well, I get it, but Buster hasn't been charged with anything. No one said he should be charged with anything, from what I can tell. Yes, his mom and brother are passed away. They're dead. His father's in prison and probably going to stay there for a significant amount of time. What's he supposed to do? Sit around and mourn forever? Life's got to go on. But hopefully he doesn't do bad things like his dad is alleged to have done. Kathy, it seems like it's always the life insurance money that kills them. Lisa says, I think Kim Kardashian, is underestimated. Must be doing something right. Well, she certainly knows correctly how to make a lot of money. I'm not exactly sure if she gets an A for relationship advice, but hey, who are we to judge her, right? Kanye seems a little and then when there were a couple before that or something, I don't know. And then she's David. Was it Pete Davidson? Is that his name? They just seem like two people that would have absolutely nothing in common whatsoever. I maybe it's just like a rebound thing. I don't know. But hey, listen, Kim Kardashian has never followed the mainstream, and it works out pretty well for her. So everyone that's following the mainstream maybe needs to just shut up and, let her do her thing, because so far it's working. And, as an advocate for people, she's, had several people, based upon her advocacy, get them pardoned and sentences reduced and death penalties taken off the table. So, she's doing something right. She's doing something right. Caroline. There is also a ton of legal work that involves almost zero court time, and for corporate clients, so there's almost no person involved otherwise, client-wise. Yeah, I agree. And I remember when I was clerking in law school thinking, corporate work, that'd be interesting, right? Really? Oh my God. And this was back in the day before, computers were still kind of new in the office setting. They were, the big desktop with a little green screen kind of thing. Nothing like we have today. And so you actually had to read everything. Does the comma go in here or does the semicolon? It was a different world. And now the corporate stuff is almost so boilerplate. They're going to need less and less corporate attorneys, in my humble opinion. But if you go to court, at least it's going to be different. Like I said, what I like about my job is it's different every day. What I hate about my job is it's different every day. I never know my same days twice is going to be, never going to have the same day twice ever. And sometimes that gets a little exhausting because it's just always, you think you have your day planned out and the phone will ring and something's changed. And whatever you were going to work on that day gets put to the side because of an emergency or something comes up. So what do? You got to make up that time that you were going to work on something for the last 4 hours that you didn't. Well, when is you going to make that up? Well, it's called evenings and weekends. So yeah, that's the glamorous life of an attorney. Everybody thinks it's glamorous. It's not. So anyway, did I miss a super chat? Oh, here. Bexar County is pronounced Bayer, like Bayer, Beyer, like the aspirin. Okay, Bexar. Bexar is pronounced Bayer, Beyer, like the aspirin. And isn't Bayer Bayer? I don't know. I'm telling you, it all depends on where you grew up, how you pronounce something. Do you run down by the creek or the crick, right? That's why it's tomato. You ever heard that? A crick? Run down by the crick? I remember I heard that once. I was like, crick? What the hell is a crick? It just depends on where you're from, how it's pronounced. You just never, ever, never know. Lawyering seems boring. Do you agree? Man, some days it can be, Lisa, but my job is pretty, I don't know. It's never the same day twice. Like I said, that's good and it's bad. Sometimes it's just exhausting because, one day I'm like, wow, I think I'm going to be in the office all day and it's all going to be good. And then you get a call early in the morning that say the interpreter is suddenly available so you can go to the jail. So, okay, you run in, you do something really fast, then you run out and you spend 3 hours there. It just depends. It's worse, not wash. That's right, the wash. Crick. Is it common to file a barrage of motions right before a hearing, i.e. Stauk? It depends. Depends on when the judge set the deadline to file motions. Usually the judge likes to have enough time so they can review them and if the other side's going to respond. And frankly, I love it. In state court, the defense usually files motions. Sometimes the prosecution files motions, but I know we try to always respond, usually to try to show the court and the prosecution the errors of their ways. But sometimes the prosecution doesn't respond in state court. It drives me absolutely bonkers. That's what I love about federal court is that everybody has to respond in paper. So everybody knows the argument. It's been briefed. You've had time to review the case law. That's why it's such a pleasure to go to federal court, where state court, it's just so damn busy. There's so many cases. It's just crazy. Emily. Hi, Scott. Why isn't the DA considering double jeopardy in the Barry Morphew case? Wild speculation, and he looks like a bad guy, isn't evidence. You're absolutely correct. Now, when would jeopardy attach, Emily? Well, once the jury was seated, okay? If the case gets, thrown out or something like that, they could always try to refile, but chances are they wouldn't unless there was some new evidence that would come forward. And I'm not saying they're going to, but I'm just saying, like I said, and this is what I tried to stress on my channel for the longest time, and this is why I probably upset a lot of people on other channels, was because I kind of said, what are you doing, man? You're just making this speculation with nothing to support it. You can't back it up, okay? And it's one thing to think it. It's one thing to feel it in your gut. But the reality of it is, how do you prove it? And that's the only thing that matters when you go into court. How do you prove it? I don't care if it's a criminal case or it's a civil case. At the end of the day, you have to be able to prove it with legally competent evidence. So what witness are you going to have to call that witnessed what took place that gives rise to the cause of action, i.e., what evidence is going to support the elements of the allegation, whether it's a civil or criminal case, okay? You have to be able to do that. And what documents are going to be there to support that? And, okay, you have a document, but you need somebody to come in and testify to that and be subject to cross-examination. You're not going to just say, oh, here's the document, it's admitted. You have to bring in the right people to do that. Well, what if all those people are on the other side of the country? The attorney's not going to pay for that out of his pocket. Maybe it's a contingency case, but if not, the defense is going to have to do that. So, it's, it's what it comes down to. And like I said, that's why so many people, I think, in the true crime area that discuss recent cases, is that they get so far carried away. And I like a lot of these people. I really do. I love these YouTubers. But every now and then they just go so far on the speculation that it's just like, man, I like you as a person, but your credibility is just shot because you have nothing to back up your hunch, okay? And, it's kind of like the great conspiracy theories, well, I've got this little piece of evidence and I got this little piece of evidence, and they say, oh, well, isn't that enough? And you're like, no, that's not enough. And they say, well, I've got this. And don't you like, well, no, that's taken out of context. Yeah, but if I use this little piece, and, next thing you know, you're adjusting your tinfoil hat and you're not being intellectually honest because you have to look at it. And that, as an attorney, I don't know, okay, whatever. That's bold allegation. How you going to prove it? Okay. And that's all that really matters. That's right, Jen Lowe. Facts matter. Facts matter. Or as we say jokingly sometime, why should we let the facts get in the way of a good defense, right? The joke. But you know what I'm saying, sometimes that's all you've got. But yeah, the facts matter at the end of the day. And you have to have that assessment with, your client, like what is, it matters. You have to do, you have to be intellectually honest, right? You have to say, does this make sense? If I had to stand up in front of a jury, could I sell this with a straight face, or are they just going to laugh at me, right? And so many people are like, well, I'm not in front of a jury. I don't have to. Well, guess what? In my world, I have to get up and do it. It's one, and I'm telling you, if you've ever been in front of 12 people that are not buying what you're selling, it can be a very, very humbling experience and a very, very long couple of days, okay? So it's easy to be kind of on the keyboard and say, oh, this is it. Look at this. It depends. I mean, think about all the cold cases we've talked about where don't you think if the police had enough information where they think they could prove the case, they would file it? Yes, but they know that they don't have the evidence to get it into court, which is a great transition, okay? So we were supposed to have a guest this evening. I think we were trying to schedule, but he's scheduled for next Tuesday, all right? So next week is going to be a great show. And what is our guest? Who is our guest, you ask? Well, I won't tell you his name, but he is an active member of a cold case unit for a police department. He's got approval from his bosses that he can come in and talk about what he does as a cold case detective, as well as talk about some of the pending cold cases, because I've said it before, someone somewhere knows something about a case. So the more publicity that cold cases get, the more likely they're going to get solved. So next week, please join us when we have a cold case detective. It's going to be in here in studio, and I'm not sure if we're going to do it here or maybe out at the hangar. If you looked at last week's show, it was one of our most viewed live shows. Over, I think, 11,000 people participated in that. And we went for 3.5 hours. I'm not sure we'll go for 3.5 hours, but we had Mark there. It went by going so fast because, at least for me, because, wow, I mean, it was like having a conversation with your buddy when you were having a cigar or two, right? It went by super, super fast. So let's see. Got a couple more questions here. Edgecombe thoughts. I'm going to have to look more into it. Not familiar with it that much, so I would feel comfortable responding. I don't like to speculate. Let's see if I got something here. Kelly B, thanks for the super chat there. It would have been really difficult to be the defense in the Halderson case. Yeah. What did that jury come back in? Like how many hours? I mean, didn't I say? Yeah. Didn't I say, oh, yeah, maybe they're going to wait to get their lunch, but this will be a quick verdict. And I think somebody was like, oh, you didn't comment on how quickly the verdict came back. Well, I speculated before. Well, I didn't speculate. I guessed, whatever the word I want to look for. But yeah, that was a bad case. I could tell that was going to be a bad case for the defense. We've all been there. It's one of those things like there is no offer. It's a Gort trial. Plead guilty or we'll go to trial. Guilty, Gort, right? G-O-R-T, guilty or trial. That's what the DAs used to stamp on their file. Your client can plead guilty to the charges, all of them, or we're going to trial. Okay, see you in trial. Not doing that. Trish wants a hanger show. And we did some rearranging. I went out there Sunday, right? So, what was it? We did our Tuesday night show. Wednesday worked, had court. Thursday was super busy. Flew down to Dallas. Did a marathon meeting for 10.5 hours. Had dinner with my daughter on Saturday. Flew back Saturday. Thought I was going to maybe have to go to Oklahoma because my son was looking at a house to buy or something like that. But that didn't materialize, so then I flew back. And then Sunday, I just had to clean the hangar. It was just out of control. So I rearranged a couple of things and got some more shelves. So everything is going to be on wheels. So when you clean or whatever, everything's going to be just on wheels, not have to drag anything. It's going to be great. And literally, it looks like my living room over there in the corner. It looks great. I've got my restoration hardware tables. I don't have my restoration hardware couch, but I got a leather couch there. My airplane things off. I'm telling you, I could just turn it into a house. Let's see here. Tutu, ever had to change a cabin air filter? Ever have to move it in and out around the glove box? That's just a big fat, not a big deal. Hanger, you guys were so laid back. Let's see here. Just go through and answer a couple more questions. Let's see. I hope the public gets to know, and we don't have a laundry Watts type situation where it's swept under the rug. Hey, like I said, I have no dog in the fight. I mean, I hope that the Morphew case, if it deserves to go to trial, if that's the legal standard and it goes to trial, let the chips fall where they may. Let the jury decide. I really don't care one way or the other. I think it'd be interesting. I'd like to go down and watch it. There's going to be some good attorneys. I know on the defense side, not that familiar with the prosecution side, but they're off to a little bit of a shaky start. Matt says, Oklahoma. Right. It was going to be in Norman. But I have a real problem with Norman, Oklahoma, because last time I had to fly down there to pick up an expert witness, he's like, don't fly into Oklahoma City. Don't try and fly into the other airport around there. I'm like, okay, just fly into the one in Norman, which is at the college. So I land in there. And as we're taxiing down to take off, something punctures the tire on the plane. They have no services there whatsoever. Couldn't believe it. Oh, it was a mess. Had to wait until the next day to get somebody out from another airport to come change a tire. What a mess. Leanne, I know you're so busy, Scott, but I've got a stalker and Montana is an open carry. I've got a registered gun, fully trained, also a concealed weapons permit. Should I carry? As long as it's legal, why not? From what it says, it sounds like you have a stalker. That can be pretty scary in and of itself. Could it not? Absolutely. Montana is open carry, and you've got a registered gun. I never understood what the hell is a registered gun other than it was like you bought it brand new from the store. You don't have to go register guns. I mean, it's not like we're in some third world nation where, you have to get permission to buy the gun. But yeah, I mean, if somebody's talking to you, I mean, if any doubts, check with the local law enforcement out there. But, sounds like you're more than licensed and you're open carry, so go for it, right? I mean, too much shipping at me, Mama Pig. I drive a Camaro. Let's see here. Kate, I also own a roofing business and contractors dump trash in several dumpsters all the time to be cheap. And Barry was cheap. He still had an iPhone like a 6. Yeah. That's right. So the Reich Cave. Hanger. Just wondering how the heck could anyone defend him? What tactic might have done something useful, if any? This is in regards to the Halderson case. I don't think there was any good one. Ooh, did I miss something? Thoughts on Law and Crime coming after Rakita Law? What's that issue? Is it because he gets more subscribers when he puts up their feeds? Is that it? If as long as you're providing commentary, I would think yes. If you're just stealing their feed, then no. I have a little beef with Law and Crime. It goes way back before any one of the Crime Talk staff here. But Law and Crime said that they put a strike in against us, and at one point we couldn't go live for like 90 days. I tried to speak with somebody at Law and Crime to say, I think you're mistaken, and they wouldn't respond. And so they had a strike. YouTube didn't respond. It was because I've never spoken to anybody, okay? And I get it. YouTube, they can do what they want. They're a private company. But, man, they rely upon people to be creators, to do things so that they can advertise and make billions and billions of dollars. But, man, their customer service sucks to no end, which probably get me demonetized. Okay, welcome to something new, right? And you guys are like, oh, Scott, why do you have sponsors on your show? Well, you know what? This stuff just doesn't happen, and it's expensive. It really is. Anyway, law and crime. Wouldn't surprise me if they're going after Rakita Law. I'm not familiar with that, but my guess is if he is having a feed and he's sitting there commenting on the case, I think he's, unless somebody proves me wrong, I think it's fair use at that point for educational and commentary issues. But I don't know. Does anybody watch Law and Crime? I mean, don't we have about as many subscribers as Law and Crime? I don't know. I mean, maybe, I don't know, one time. I mean, I've seen their Law and Crime, like they only got 50 views or something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they're very lovely people. That's what I meant to say. I'm sure they're very lovely people. But when they made a strike against us because we played a portion of a video, they said, "You're stealing our copyrighted material." I'm like, no, it's part of a commentary. It's fair use. And they were doing it. Mom Pink, what is Rakita Law? He is an attorney up in Minnesota. I think we've been on his show a couple times. I don't know. I think he's about 300,000 subscribers, but he does basically a live show. Goes live first thing in the morning till the wee hours of the night. And, he does criminal law. And some days, he makes $1 bazillion, I think, on super chats. He's like, listen, I'll stay as long as the super chats keep coming. Okay, yeah, Michael, they're claiming fair use violation, which they haven't got a leg to stand on. Sent cease and desist to Nix. His lawyers sent a response. Well, good for him. And I'm sure Law and Crime is, they're the ones, they go and they get permission to go in and film it. But, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, they tried to shut us down way back when as well. And so I just assume probably not even mention them. But I'm sure they're lovely people. But I think Rakita Law and everyone else will hopefully prevail in that. DF Blue, stalker issues first call law enforcement, file a complaint, carry if legal, and use it if your life depends on. If he attacks you, he is bought and paid for. CYA. Good advice. Matt, you totally need to come on and talk to Rakita tomorrow during jury deliberations for the Edicombe trial. He'll be happy to chat about law and crime. Well, maybe we can reach out to him, Julie. Because we've been on Rakita Law a couple of times. It's always fun. And law and crime, instead of, what's the word I'm looking at? Saying, hey, there's all these other people that can produce great content as well. We should work with them, partner with them. They don't want to do that. They want to be the only show in town, and they'll, they just want to make everybody go away. But I think Nick, I would love for him if he's just be like, yep, we're going to keep doing it. Come and get me. I mean, I think he has more subscribers than Law. How many orders does Law and Crime have? 600,000-ish? Okay. Well, they have more than us. I think Nick's at 350, something like that. And this is a guy in a room in his house that has more than, almost as many as that, because he provides relevant commentary on these cases, kind of real time, man. I mean, come on. Uh-oh. Okay, what's the question?
What is a material witness warrant, and why would a prosecution use it?
If somebody is usually a witness in a case, they will be subpoenaed. If the person is in fact subpoenaed and they don't show up, a warrant for their arrest can be issued. Basically, it's a contempt citation. But you have to actually serve them, and you have to have jurisdiction over them to do so in court. It gets tricky, for example, when people are out of state. You just don't say, hey, here's a subpoena, show up. It doesn't work that way. obviously, let's say, for example, you have a case, let's say in Colorado, and the witness is in, let's say, Omaha, Nebraska. And the person's like, I'm not coming to Colorado. Can't make me, can't serve me, come get me, nah. Totally legal. So the prosecution has to do an interstate compact rendition or something like that, I think is what they call it, where basically you have to file and they have to serve the paperwork on the people in Omaha to get a court date in Omaha, where they basically have to be ordered by the court to say they're going to give you a plane ticket on this date and you need to show up, otherwise you're going to be held in contempt. But they have to serve you to do that. And that's normally where there's some type of an issue there. I'm not aware of any circumstance where you can just file a warrant to say this person's a really important witness in this case and we have a warrant to come get them. I've never personally been involved in anything like that. I can't even think of a statute where that would have been used. So, yeah. Let's see if there's I thought I saw another super chat here. Clumsy clairvoyance. Yes, Law and Crime sent him a cease and desist. I think he says, nope, fair use. Sorry. But we'll have to see how that plays out. That could be rather pivotal for lots of people when it comes to these types of cases where cases are televised. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But my first gut instinct is that it would be nothing but let's see. Matt here says again, actually, any of the 4 trials that Nick might have possibly used their feed, every one of them, the media order by the court specifically excluded pool feed users from claiming any copyright. Well, there you go. Yeah. I think Law and Crime is just trying to be the big bully on the block. Just my humble opinion. I'm sure they're lovely people, and I'm sure they have legal advice where they're looking at that, but I think they're wrong. I don't understand this question. 379 Joshua, in your Second Amendment, is your Second Amendment violated when you are banned, even a Congress member? I'm not sure what that means. Sorry. Michael, that's exactly what you're doing, Scott, and you should see his lawyer's response letter, Law and Crime, like utter fools. They're lame complaints. Well, good for Nick. We should reach out to him and give him our support because, like I said, they gave us a content strike one day and banned us from going live for like 90 days. It was all because of them. And they wouldn't even do it. I couldn't get any response from YouTube in any way. And so, needless to say, I just have my own personal issues. But at least I'm telling you, right? I'm telling you where I sit before I tell you where I stand, that I don't like Law and Crime. And I hope that Nick Rakita kicks their ass. Just saying. That would be lovely. So, all right, let's go do the Patreon show, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't become a Patreon, now's the time to do so. Well, and you get to call in. And then guess what? That's right, the Magic 8 Ball, who I think is pretty darn right. I think we may ask the Magic 8 Ball tonight some questions about Barry Morphew. That's what I'm thinking because, well, I think that, I don't know. I think they're screwing it up, the prosecution is right now. And I don't think that they are, I think they're looking for a way out. The prosecution, that is. Because right now, Barry Morphew is winning. And I don't like to say that he's winning in a homicide case, but let's face it, in court, right now, he's winning. All right, thanks for watching. Join us next time when we do our after-hours show. And remember, next week we're going to have a active cold case detective, come talk about what he does, how he does it, and the cases that he's working on. I think it's going to be a great, great show. So please join us. Please join us for Patreon here in about 5 minutes. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.